Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Russian tomato salad bruschetta. That's right, I'm predicting that Russian and Italian recipe mashups is going to be the biggest food trend over the next year or so. Although I should probably mention, none of my food trend predictions ever come true, which is why you've never had buffalo-style haggis. So I'm not really sure if that's ever going to come to pass. But what I am sure of is this one specific example really was an amazing combination. And to get started, what we'll do first is the thing we're going to use last. And that would be a simple garlic-infused olive oil, which we will make by stirring a couple tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil into a couple crushed or finely minced garlic cloves. And that's it. Once that's mixed, we'll simply let that sit on the counter for about an hour, at which point it'll be ready to use. And then once that's set, we will move on to this extremely simple Russian dressing, which will include 1 part plain yogurt plus 2 parts sour cream. And what we'll do is give that a quick stir with our spatula. And yes, you can use all one or the other. But if I had to pick just one, I would go with the sour cream, since it's a little bit richer and creamier. But why choose? Just use both like I am. And then once we've given that a quick stir, we will set that aside and move on to slice our onion, which in my case is going to be 1/2 of what's known as a sweet onion. And just a quick reminder that the fibers on an onion run this direction. So what we'll do is cut it lengthwise that way. And then we'll turn it, and we will slice across very thinly this way. And I say slice, I really mean shave. Okay, the thinner this is, the better. And when I say to use a sweet onion, I'm talking about varieties like Vidalia, or Walla Walla, or Maui. Okay, something very sweet and mild enough to eat raw. Oh, and by the way, when you get down to the end, don't be a hero. Don't worry about slicing across the grain at the end. Just take your time and be careful, and slice it up any way you can. And then what we'll do as soon as this is sliced is we will quickly transfer it into our bowl of sour cream and yogurt. And we will give it a quick toss until it's coated. And the reason we're doing this is if you slice onions and just leave them on a cutting board, they will actually start to oxidize and get stronger in flavor. So we will try to get those into this nice acidic dressing as soon as we can. And then once our onions are set, we can move on to cutting up our tomatoes. And today I'll be using this brandy wine, a purple Cherokee, and a red I'm not sure. And let me go ahead and start with this purple Cherokee because it is one of the most beautiful tomatoes you will ever see. I mean, come on, look at that. And yes, we did grow that ourselves. And what I like to do after trimming off any rough patches on the skin is take about 1/8 of this tomato, and I'll take these larger chunks and I'll slice it about 1/8 of an inch thick, which by the way is way smaller than your classic Russian tomato salad, where they're usually cut into larger chunks. And if I was going to serve this as a standalone side dish salad, that is how I'd be doing it. But since I'm going to use this salad to make bruschetta, I do want these tomatoes to be cut a lot thinner. So I went ahead and sliced up about twice as much tomato as I had onion. And then what we'll do is transfer those into our bowl and give everything a nice mix. And yes, some people do drain the tomatoes, but I don't. I want every single drop of that sweet, delicious juice. So ultimately, what's going to happen in my case, the final dressing is going to be basically half the sour cream mixture and then half accumulated juices, which is going to give us a very light, very runny, but I think perfect sauce to coat this mixture in. And then once we've given that a quick initial mix, we'll go ahead and season this up with some freshly ground black pepper, some cayenne pepper, and then last but not least, a nice big pinch of salt. In fact, let's make that 2 big pinches of salt. Okay, this is a salad that does need to be fairly aggressively seasoned. And that's it. As soon as we mix all that together, we will cover this in plastic and pop it in the fridge until we're ready to top our grilled bread, which is our next and last major step. And what we'll need is 4 nice thick slices of Italian or French bread. And what we'll do is head out to the grill, and we will toast these over some beautiful ashy coals. And I feel like I say this during every grilling video, but please make sure your coals get nice and white before you try to cook over them. Right, not only will it be nice and hot, but it's going to be a more uniform heat as well. And once we place those down, we will pretty much continually rotate them and eventually flip those over. And we'll grill them until they're beautifully toasted and borderline charred. In fact, not even borderline. Okay, we definitely want some spots that are charred, which, as I'm going to talk about later, really is the key to a perfect bruschetta. Or as a lot of my fellow Americans like to pronounce it, bruschetta. And by the way, contrary to popular belief, this bread should not be stale, nor should it be soaked with olive oil yet. All right, I think those are 2 big mistakes people make when they try to do this. All right, if you use stale bread, by the time the outside is nicely browned, the inside's going to be all dry and crumbly. which is not what we want. Okay, I still want it to retain a little bit of chewiness in the center, so I think we should use fresh or relatively fresh bread. And as far as the oil goes, I think you're going to get a much better flavor if you put the oil on after it's grilled. But anyway, we'll keep moving those around, flipping and a turning and flipping, until, like I said, they are very well browned and definitely charred in a few spots. And then what we'll do is pull those off the grill, and we will head back inside. And while these are still warm, we'll go ahead and drench them with our garlic oil. And yes, if we were making authentic bruschetta, we would actually just rub a whole garlic clove on these, where it sort of gets grated by that rough surface. And then we would top it with our diced tomatoes and olive oil and basil and salt and whatever else we wanted. But here, because I'm going to top it with that very wet salad, I think this garlic-infused olive oil works out better and will insulate the bread. And that's it. Once those have been garlic oiled, we can go ahead and serve one up and top it with our salad that I'm definitely using a slotted spoon for. Okay, it's going to have plenty of that dressing coating it, and we can always spoon some more on later. And then after using the spoon, I went to my hands for some fine-tuning, since I am, as you know, contractually obligated to take some pictures. And after topping these, if you want to drip on a little more of that dressing, go ahead. Okay, our beautifully grilled and well-oiled bread can handle it. And that's it. I finished up with some freshly snipped chives. Although if you want, dill also works beautifully. Or even some basil if you want. So you decide. I mean, you are, after all, the Vladimir Putin of your tomato salad on gluten. And that, my friends, is one of the most delicious uses of fresh summer tomatoes you will ever experience. Right, those sweet, juicy tomatoes, paired with those also sweet, but still a little bit sharp onions, dressed with that ultra-simple, tangy, creamy sauce. Plus, and it really is the key here, the bitterness from the char on the bread really does amplify all those other sweet flavors, and really is the magic behind why bruschetta is so incredibly delicious. And yes, this is a large proportion of onions to tomato, but if you use the mild sweet varieties, this amount really does work wonderfully. But fair warning, if you try to use a regular yellow onion, this amount could be overpowering. So a quick tip if you are using non-sweet onions, you can actually soak them in water and then rinse them off and dry them to make them a little more mild. Or to make them a lot more mild, you can actually blanch them in boiling water for like 10 seconds, or give them a quick saute in a pan for a minute, which will take off that hot, sharp raw edge. But plan A is to find some sweet onions. And as I mentioned, I only cut the tomatoes this thin if I'm doing bruschetta. Right, so the topping's almost more like a relish or a salsa. If you're not into the bread part and you do want to do this as a salad, just do everything exactly the same, except cut your tomatoes in larger chunks. And that will probably work out better texturally as a salad. But anyway, that's it. What I'm calling Russian tomato salad bruschetta. While I'm not sure if my Russian-Italian food trend prediction is going to be true, I do know that this pairing was absolutely outstanding. And I think a platter of these would be very much enjoyed by your guests, especially the Russian Italians, which is why I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.